This 5 skeleton-faced creatures are bound to scare anyone, or at least it did the original designer. Hey toy fans, I'm here with another top 5 list. This month is one of my favorite months. This is October, so all Halloween themed, so I like scary stuff. And nothing seems to hit that scary quite like this one character created by Mark Taylor that is basically the embodiment of a fossilized person that was found in a fun house when he was a kid and then became the embodiment of evil. As you can check him out in some of his interviews where he talks about it, and that body ended up being a person that had been hung like almost like decades or a century before. So anyways, Skeletor is pretty gnarly. And with Skeletor, he has a lot of appearances, a lot of costume changes, and a lot of different interpretations. So this, for my top 5, will be my top 5 Skeletors from my collection that I really like. So let's get into it. My number 5, starting with some New Adventures love. And I actually just broke them. I gotta fix them before I review them much. But it is Battle Blade Skeletor, also known as Hulator. I think I've talked about him before. Yeah. Alright, coming in at number 5 is, of course, my Battle Blade Skeletor. Now, this particular Skeletor was part of the New Adventures of He-Man, or it's called He-Man, which is just He-Man and not the Masters Universe toy line. It came out in 1989, 1990, around there. I believe it's stamped for 1990. And this was a part of their space adventure run of He-Man toys, which a lot of people don't like, but I think the sci-fi aspect of it's kind of fun. Now, when I picked him up with a whole slew of figures that were technically purple and blue, which was kind of strange, with hints of green in it. He was one of them. And I longingly started to refer to him as Hulator because he's got this weird sort of I don't know, it's like a dancing waist thing that makes him tilt back and forth. It was just kind of strange. And then he's got this long black hair that just comes out of the back of his crown. It's a very odd fit because it's acrylic hair, but it's supposed to be like doll hair, and it was just kind of an odd fix for him. But there were things like I love the kind of almost like the brain work on the top of the head, the way the skull face is created, even the skull face within his clothing, his armor here, and all these white pieces here actually glow in the dark, and even like the detail down in the eyes, which are pink. I just realized, like nipples. That's kind of strange. Okay, yeah, but again with the skull motif, he's got skulls on his knees, and I even love the way that they have this skull face shield built. This is really cool. And he has an axe that comes with him. I have not been able to get the axe, but take him and he'd fling that axe off, and he could battle people that way. I thought he was really cool. And ever since I've gotten him, I've been super happy to have this particular Skeletor in my collection. Pretty silly looking, but I kind of like it with the hair and all. So my number 4 is coming in straight from a line that Scott Knightlick was so passionate about, that helped bring in the new era of how we collect toys through a subscription service and everything. And he did an incredible job getting the 4 Horsemen to come in and create a lot of new sculpts and pieces. And this particular Skeletor I really liked because I really liked the way they changed it from the original and added in quite a bit of detail to make him stand out and be really cool. My number 4 Skeletor, of course, is the New Adventures Skeletor. Oh yeah, from Masters Universe Classics. Alright, my number 4 is, of course, this really awesome New Adventures of He-Man Skeletor from the Masters Universe Classics. Again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I really want to thank Scott Knightlick for the work that he put into these because they're great. His passion for He-Man really helped us bring us the Classic series, and I Absolutely love the classic series. It's one of my favorite series to boot so far. I haven't gotten into the Masterverse yet. I haven't found anything I've really been akin or tied to. But when these classics came out, I fell in love. They're just really great collector pieces. And out of that, I know there was a whole run of the Space Mutants and the Earth Defenders, or the Primus Defenders, New Adventures run of these figures. And I just thought that this Skeletor was the perfect adaptation of his original design. Now, of course, this Skeletor was the first Skeletor to come out in the He-Man toy line, and you'd turn his waist and he'd move his staff. So what they'd done with the Classics version, since the Classics version didn't have all that, they tried to mimic and build as much of the vintage look as they could on parts that they already had. So we had gotten these newly tooled boots, which I thought were just super cool. Wow, I need to get these down and rock their legs a little bit more, I think. It's been a while since I brought him down. But they've got this really nice detail work with the Cybertronic pieces into the skin. It's got the little bit of metallic blue on there, the kind of golden, almost like brass style trunks with the skull on it. The details on this are amazing, even down to the hands, where they're almost skeletal in their own nature, but they're done as armor. And I love the staff work that they did for this. Just looks really, really cool. And then of course the underneath with all the spine work, there's so many pieces of this that are just amazing. And then to top it off, I thought the coolest piece of all was you could take off the helmet, much like the vintage, and they had this nice airbrush skull where it starts off yellow and goes back to green, and then you've got that blue cybernetic piece that runs into the head and then should connect down to the spine. And even though that there's some bulkiness about them because they had to put an overlay on them and everything, and the cape doesn't come off, and so there's some parts I know a lot of fans were upset about, but all in all, I really felt like this was one of those figures that was firing on all cylinders, and it looked great. This is definitely one that I enjoy having in my collection, because as gnarly as that face sculpt is, he really does look like the embodiment of evil. Yeah, that is a cool looking figure, isn't it? Alright, so we're up to number 3. Now, my number 3's got a little bit of vintage love and vibe to it, and there's a lot of really awesome Skeletors in the vintage line, and I had a hard time picking. I almost wanted to have ties, but I said this isn't Talking Toys Taylor and Jeff, so I was like, I really need to make this where it is that true one. And this one I had to pick one over the other, and I decided this was the best one, because what's scarier than Skeletor in a midriff, right? That's right, Terror Claw Skeletor. Okay, my number 3, and I gotta tell you, it seems a little chintzy, it seems a little silly, but this was, of course, the vintage toy line, and the thing that made the vintage toy line so much fun was the colors, the excitement, and sometimes the play features. And much like his counterpart, the Flying Fist He-Man, Skeletor has this thing where you can flip him back and forth, and he can claw stuff with his specialty monster claws. Which I love. I love the look of these things. They're like metallized claws, and his hand fits in them, so they open up. It's a pretty fresh design. I dig the way this looks, and the way it looks together with the whole motif. Even this kind of midriff armor piece, it's all done in metallic, and of course the skull here that's also done in metallic. And I've got paint chip on mine. It actually looks like metal, which might be. But you would take this off, and of course you got that classic Skeletor head, and you could pull this, the whole tab, not the whole tab out. You could pull this piece out, put the tab back on so it holds that, and you can put that in his hand. And
It's kind of like the Battle Bones in a way. Like, it reminds me a lot of the Battle Bones, but also reminds me a little bit of the face from Beetlejuice, the Adam Maitland's chicken-headed looking character. But it's got that nice whip action, which is hilariously a lot of fun. Yeah, this is a cool figure. I mean, I don't think it gets quite the amount of love that it should, but come on, it's entertaining and it's fun, and this is what, you know, the Masters of the Universe toy line was based on, was this idea of just kind of over the top, everything with the kitchen sink, fun, and I think this shows it. Seems a little silly. I don't know about the dragon whip, but it works, right? Alright, so my number 2. Now, we had talked about some Four Horsemen love with the Classics version. Four Horsemen, when they got their hands in, had been sculptors for, of course, Todd McFarlane Toys, and then later started their own company. They have put out some amazing sculpts, some amazing pieces, but they got a lot of really, really big love when they started creating pieces for the Masters Universe 2000X or 2002 line, also known as the MYP line or Mike Young Productions, but it is the re-emergence of He-Man in kind of the anime form back in like 2002. And of course with Skeletor, he had lots of different costume changes, and even though I like the original costume change for him and what Horseman did, I did like a few other sort of changes that were like God mode that was him from like the movie. Even though it wasn't exactly him, it looks kind of like the homage to it, which is Fire Armor Skeletor. Thing's a beast, you know. Alright, my big number 2, and I gotta tell you, the Four Horsemen did an amazing job adapting the cartoon and really getting kind of a nice vintage feel for a lot of the figures. But when they got to design some figures that were out of that realm that, you know, that they got to explore with, they did an awesome job. The sculpt is really cool, and it retains a lot of the pieces from the original version of Skeletor they did for this 2000X or 2002 line, but then they've changed a few things up, and I always felt like this was kind of emulating the idea of the God Skeletor, which is, you know, the Skeletor from the movie at the very end that's in all gold with the headdress and everything, and this is kind of like that in many ways. I like the kind of leather bound, you know, very copperish sort of flame effect to leather here and the belt work, and it's just a slightly just off kind of bluish purple that's done in metallic, which is really nice. Got these heavy golds up here, and even the crown that's done in this kind of goldish sort of copper tones with that gnarly skeleton face in there. It's just really, really, really nice. And then of course a big top off is that if you didn't want him to have his staff, you've got these 2 translucent flame swords that can pop out that he can battle with and do some damage. There's some articulation problems with them just because of the way that some parts of this are built, but I always thought that this was just such a cool action figure. Whoops, I lost a blade. I'm going to have to find that a little bit. And even this, like they had even gone out of the way to make a shooting staff, though mine I don't think tends to work. Maybe you could just hold that. Haha. It's like a flaming havoc staff. They got Skeletor down. Alright fans, and we're down to that number 1 spot, and this is one of those, when I talked about Mark Taylor at the beginning, I said that this was a important one because this is like the quintessential thing that he's like the person of evil. This one was a tough one, but I was happy to find it because originally I did not have this one as a kid, but I got him later on, and I kind of pieced him together with the stuff that he needed because this was a important one. This is of course the pink cheek Skeletor with the half boots, and of course my number 1, nothing quite beats an original. You know, the original Skeletor I love, the just the simplicity of the blue along with the purple. It's been always an amazing such a look, and I really have always dug this figure. Now, this is one, of course, this is not the one I had as a kid. That one is long gone, had been donated, but I ended up coming across this one and basically having to piece it together. The original run of them had this weird kind of pink cheek design in the skull work, and you know, it's a small minor detail that they had, but along with that you also had an original release of the purple underwear with the black belt and then the half boot legs. So this was such a cool figure for me to be able to put together, because my original Skeletor came with Screech, so I did not have the pink cheek version, and this is what originally came in package. And I love it. It's simple, it works, it's effective, and it's been so effective that Skeletor is such a recognizable character these days that any sort of interpretation, including the interpretation of him from the new Netflix cartoon series, he still looks a part of Skeletor. And it's all based on this figure that was originally conjured up and created from Mark Taylor. And I think this is why Skeletor deserves that spot as a top 5 for this month of scariness.
And there you have it. That's my list. These are my top 5 Skeletors that I chose. Let me know what Skeletors you think are in your top 5 list. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about which ones were your favorites, and you know, maybe challenge me on the ones that I have. So remember, they're not dolls, they're action figures, or in this case, skeleton-based monster action figures. When I'm not recording videos here on YouTube, I'm actually over on a podcast on marvindogmedia.com called Talking Toys with Taylor and Jeff. It's a really cool toy podcast. Be sure to check it out. Also, I need your help getting my YouTube channel to grow. Be sure to subscribe down below with that big red button. Hit that bell for notifications so you can be alerted of anything that comes from me to you. Like this video, it helps YouTube know that you like what I'm making, and comment down below. I like chatting with you all.